Do you know what the best thing about fall is, besides the nice weather?
Pumpkin spice lattes?
No. No. God. It's actually brand new basketball season. And love it. Oh, I should have said brand new basketball shoe season. What an idiot. Hey, what's good guys? My name's Chris. Welcome back to the official WearTesters.com YouTube channel. Today we got a detailed review and breakdown on these potential bad boys right here. This is the Nike Zoom GT Cut 2. I can confirm, at least for right now, unless they change their mind. And I can't tell you who told me this. All I know is there's gonna be more.
I'm listening.
Meaning a 3 and possibly a 4, so. But this is a very interesting shoe, especially when you compare it to the original. The original I absolutely love. These things and the Puma Melos, the 1.0s. Yeah, those two shoes, or this and that shoe, were my favorite basketball shoes for almost 2 years. So this thing right here, I don't know if it's going to completely compete with this, but hopefully we find out soon. We're gonna send these over to Alan. He's gonna take care of the performance review, so stay tuned for that. So with that being said, when you take these to the basketball court, I really hope that you like them. And on top of that, that's a great segue for today's sponsor. And today's sponsor is brought to you guys by the good folks over at Sole Premise. Yes, I know that you guys already know, if you're a longtime viewer of the channel, what and who Sole Premise is. They make great premium bags. But this is my favorite thing that they've done so far. And I really like their backpacks. Look at this thing, man. Look at it. I know it doesn't look like much on the outside, but look at what's on the inside. That's what really counts. I mean, this is dope, man. This is for the hoopers. This is not just for the people that like premium crafted things. This is for the guys that like to actually put form and function into their footwear, meaning that you lace these bad boys up to actually play basketball. So you can fit up to 4 pairs of shoes in these guys, and it's also customizable, which is something that I really like. So these things right here, the dividers, they actually come separate. So when this thing comes to you, it's going to be folded up. That way it's like easier to ship. It's a little bit cheaper that way as well. But at first I was like, yo, how are you gonna like know how far away to put these things and stuff like that? And then I quickly reminded myself that I'm a genius. Just kidding, I'm not. But what I did was I actually put a pair of shoes down, and then I put on the flat piece, and then I put my next pair of shoes down, and I put the flat piece in there, and then I put this pair of shoes down with a flat piece, and now I can slide in the next pair of basketball shoes that I might be testing right in there, and it all fits. So if you are interested in grabbing this or anything else from Sole Premise, make sure that you use the link directly in our description box. It'll head you over to Sole Premise's website. Don't forget to use our promo code, which is WearTesters at checkout. It'll give you a significant discount on your entire cart. It's gonna be awesome, trust me. And with all that being said, look at this outsole. Oh my goodness, it looks amazing. On top of that, it's really, really weird, which I really like. I don't know if you guys know this, but I like weird new things on my basketball shoes. It gets me excited to go play basketball. That's exactly what the GT Cut 1 did for me, and that's exactly what the GT2 or GT Cut 2 is doing for me too. Mainly because, well, 2 things, but the first thing is listed right here where it says Smear Traction 1.0, which again alludes to there being other iterations of this. But what the hell is Smear Traction? I asked the guy that actually designed this stuff. He also was the same guy that created the Zoom Strobel.
We're not worthy!
When he explained it to me, I still didn't get it. That's how strange this but essentially, what I gathered from what he explained to me is that this kind of like traction pattern is floating, essentially, instead of it being kind of like a really thin piece of rubber with the webbing or the traction or the tread grooved into it. This traction is meant to move a little bit more, so you'll notice that the grooves are super thick, so the depth is not shallow, okay? So if you're looking at new shoes, like say this one, the top of the traction pattern to the bottom of the rubber is shallow, so it's like a couple of millimeters. This is not like that. On top of that, it's serrated, or it looks like it's layered almost, and it's very pliable, so the way that you would move on a basketball court, whether it be like linearly or laterally, the traction is supposed to move or smear with you, essentially giving you the greatest amount of traction at any and all times. Plus, the more that you wear it, the more that it burns out or gets worn out. There's still layers underneath that because it's so thick and again serrated, so it should last quite a long time. And the second thing that I think is really weird is the tip of the traction itself, this blue section on this particular colorway. Not only is it nubs, which I like, nubs tend to work really well, but they're thick nubs. They also taper to thinner nubs all the way to the tip, but this particular section of the rubber felt really weird, and it's because it's part of the TPU like lateral caging of the midsole, which is really interesting. So this type of rubber is not the same thing as this type of rubber, and it's not the same type of rubber that they typically use on outsoles. So you normally don't see this plastic based, even though rubber is kind of plastic based, but you normally don't see this style plastic base on something like this. Like this is straight up rubber. This is like a heavy plastic based rubber. It's still very tacky, especially when I take them out to our little stage over there with the wood floor. This just grips like crazy. Now the rest of the midsole is EVA, but much like the GT Cut ones, it's actually more of a cup sole than anything else, and that's housing all of the cushioning and all of the components that make up the main layers or the most exciting layers of the shoe. So the first thing that's in there, or the first layer that's in there, is a full-length zoom strobel, just like the original model, which I think is fantastic because I think that thing should be in every shoe, whether it's a casual shoe to a basketball shoe or whatever, it should just be in there. But on top of all of that is this guy right here. So we've got another drop-in insole or midsole. It's also made out of React, just like the original ones. It doesn't feel as good as this one, I will say that. It feels a little bit more firm, a little bit more dense. It's also feeling a little bit lower, so I don't know, like I don't have like one of those like measuring tools, you know what I mean? But it just feels that way. It's also different, so if you were wondering like me, like, oh, are they just reusing, which would be cheaper, the molds? But no, they're not. These are actually two different, completely different molds, which is really cool to see because that means that Nike actually put money behind these.
Wow.
One of the upgrades though is actually the top layer, so it's the sock liner. They actually added one on there, which was not on these guys. These are uncomfortable at first. The grooves that are in there, it's almost like its own traction inside to like keep your socks and stuff like that from slipping, which was an issue with the first drop-ins with like the Kobe's and stuff like that. But what this ended up doing is it will chafe my toe pads, and then I end up with blisters and stuff like that until I start breaking this thing in. Once it's broken in, it's fantastic, but until then, it's kind of uncomfortable, you know what I mean? So I like that they added the little layer on there. A little thin layer of sock liner goes a long way when it comes to these drop-ins, so I love that. Something else that they added was an additional zoom unit, so technically it's double stacked, but that is so unimpressive. Like, why is that even there? You know what I mean? Like, why couldn't, tell me why. Go ahead. I actually didn't even try if you can swap these out. It's not the best fit. It's right there in the heel.
It looks a little wider.
Well, yeah, so that was when I was, now it's stuck. I'm just gonna leave it in there. But yeah, that was one of the things that I had noticed right away is how the heel is a little bit more tapered. It's a little thinner. When you put this in there, it's noticeable. It starts crumpling up. It'll probably chafe your foot a little bit. Sorry, I can't leave it in there. It'll bother me. So I would not recommend putting the old insole to replace the new one just because it's not the best fit.
You can see where it's bunching.
Yeah, it up. So that was not a good idea. But for science. Now the materials and the overall aesthetic of the shoe is what I don't love about the shoe overall. First off, these took me some time to get used to the way that they looked. I thought they were really funny looking at first, especially when I first put them on. The way that the shoe looked made me look like I was like this. I kind of felt like I was wearing like sock shoes. But these ones just don't like impress me the way that the other ones did. The other ones used more of a neoprene upper along with textiles, which is super comfortable, super lightweight, also fairly supportive, surprisingly. This one right here goes more into the line of the plasticky stuff that I just don't love. So the upper itself, like the main top layer, kind of looks and feels like fishing line just because it's see-through. So it's essentially TPU threads. It's going to be stronger than the original one. It also allows it to be a lot more breathable, which you can see like the extra support layers underneath that. It's just that aesthetically, it's not my cup of tea or whatever. But at the same time, they're basketball shoes. They're meant to be worn and trashed and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, aesthetics don't really come into play unless we're talking about Jordans, and we will soon. But they did keep the neoprene on the tongue, which I like. It feels super comfortable. If anything, that's probably the best place to put it just because it adds a little buffer between your foot and the laces, so you're not getting all that lace pressure and making your foot go numb. But again, something that they upgraded compared to the original one is that secondary layer underneath the top layer, and that is the support features. So you can kind of see it on this colorway where it's that blue webbing. That's all over the shoe. So you've got a lot of structure underneath this thin, lightweight material, which is great. You also have extra lockdown pieces, which are these three kind of like additional eyelets that you can see like protruding out of the shoe and everything versus the normal eye stay eyelets. And I like that they're in the forefoot/midfoot section just because that's where I like my shoes to really be like tight and yanked on. So having those there, you're gonna get a more of a clamp, like a finger-like action. So it's gonna really suck your foot down onto the footbed. And when you have something like this where they're kind of like disconnected, that's super important. That way you don't feel like everything's like moving separately, you know what I mean? Like it's gonna move like one full unit, which is great. And then as far as sizing is concerned, concerned, they do fit true to size, so whatever you wore in the last model, if you happen to have actually gotten a pair, that's exactly what I would recommend here. If you haven't worn the original model, again, going true to size is your best bet. I think that they fit awesome. I think that they're super comfortable. I hope that people like them because this shoe was such a hit on court to me. It was just one of my favorite shoes to play in, that it would be really disappointing if they didn't follow it up with something just as good or better. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all the support. Stay tuned for the next one. So until then, have a good one.